All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Comrades Marathon Women's webinar. Always excited to do these. Love doing these webinars. Just a few things that we're going to be doing is obviously I've got myself here. I've got Pat Freeman with me, and I've also got Nikki de Villiers with me, and we're going to be going through a lot of things tonight. So really looking forward to it. Let me just do a couple of introductions, and then we can get started. So looking forward to having all of you here. Please jump into the chat. Let me know where you're from. Let me know if you've done a couple of these Comrades Marathons. I mean, many of us probably feel like novices because we haven't done an up run in a while. But yeah, jump into the chat. Let me know where you are from. Let me know if you're a novice, if you've done a few of these, and yes, we can get started. So just a few introductions to get us going. My name is Shona Hendricks. I work at coachperry.com. I'm the former head of sports science at the University of Pretoria. I have a postgraduate degree in sports science. I also have an MBA. I created the Running Through Menopause training framework at Coach Perry. And I've also done a couple of these runs myself. So runner and triathletes. I've done a few international marathons and a number of ultra marathons as well. We also have Nikki de Villiers with us tonight, and a lot of you know Nikki well. Nikki graduated as a dietitian from the University of Pretoria. She's completed a postgraduate diploma through the International Olympic Committee and a master's degree in dietetics. She's been working in the field of dietetics for around 20 years and has been concentrating on sports nutrition for the last 14 years. So really great to have Nikki here. She's also consulted for various PSL teams, professional rugby teams, and has been the Comrades Marathon official dietitian and worked with athletes across all sorts of levels. Excuse me. Also, we have Patricia Freeman. So really excited to have Patricia with us. Patricia started running at the age of 31 as a single mom with a full-time job and no previous running experience. And of course, being a full-time mom has limited training hours as well. To date, Patricia has completed 31 Comrades, which is amazing, and nearly 100 standard marathons, which is amazing as well. So love that, Pat. Lovely to have you. And has been on the Comrades board for 4 years. She also convenes the charities portfolio, which is great. And I love this. She says, I'm very passionate about the charities' involvement in the ultimate human race. Do it for others, and it's time to give back, which is absolutely awesome. So thank you so much to everyone for being here. I see there's a few people tuning in. So I see Carol's from Pound Town. Carol, nice to have you. Carol, we know you well. We also, Carol's done 7 Comrades, and Susan's also joining us. She says, hi from Cape Town. This is my first up run. So welcome to Susan. Please, guys, keep those comments and chats coming in. And I've got Pat with me now. So Pat, I'm going to load up your slides and you're going to tell us a little bit more about the Comrades charities. So I'm going to hand over to you. But what I need you to do is I'll just skip through the slides as you're going through. So there we go. Sorry. And before you start, I see Annie Miel is saying hi, Pat. It's Annie from Boston. So it's obviously someone you know, which is excellent. So yeah, I'm gonna unmute you, Pat, and you can talk away. And I'll get myself off here, and you can take us through these charities. Excellent. Good, Pat. I'm going to hand over to you. Off you go, and yeah, let me know if you need me to just say flick slide, and I'll flick the slide for you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks, Anna. Can you hear me? Am I on? Hello, everybody. Hello, Annie. Annie's a success story. Annie has just arrived in the country as a Boston Marathon finisher for the first marathon that she's ever done in her life, and happened to bump into me. Big mistake. So she's now entered Comrades. That's a great starting point for us to talk about charities and how to raise funds and why. And as it says here, the various ways that we can help our charities. I will go back to Amabidi, the word Amabidi in our next slide. But first up, I just wanted to clarify
Can you guys let me know if we all lost Pat or if that was just me? Okay, there we go. Pat's voice is coming and going. Thanks, Carol. I know, and I don't. I think we might have lost Pat. Or is she back? Let me add her. Pat, there we go. Sorry, you're back. There we go. You're back.
I wasn't sure where I disappeared, but I'll just summarize. This is just a summary on page 1 about why and how we would run for charity. Basically just for an extra sense of purpose in your run, but I will come back to that. I'm going to go through the 6 official charities and then also how to sign up for R4C, means Race for Charity, and how you would be able to enter the charity winner car competition, very kindly donated by Toyota. Give them a quick punt. You can change the slide. Thank you. I'd like to just go in. Will you change the slide? Thanks. Can you change the slide?
I did. So you're again. Let me change it again for you. That one?
I was waiting for the slide to change. Maybe it will. I would like to go on to the I'm a BDB.
Sophie, so if you're in the background, I'm not sure if we're obviously losing Pat a lot. Sophie, so I've added you to the stage.
Am I back?
Can you?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
So I can hear you, Sophie. So I feel like we're losing Pat a lot, and she doesn't have because if I change the slide, she can't even see it. So
okay.
Maybe if you guys want to take over and so we can just get cracking as we go.
Okay. I'll just continue. Good evening, everyone, to all the ladies that have joined us tonight. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sifiso. I'm a backup for Pets, just in case load shedding hits, and unfortunately she just got a problem with the network. But basically what she was saying, she's gonna give you some brief information about our charities. These are our official charities, 6 official charities, which is Community Chest, Sun Parks, Childline, HECT, Rise Against Hunger, and CHOC. So what Comrades do is we for a 3-year cycle, we adopt 6 official charities to stay with us, and we raise funds each year for them. So last year up until 2026, these are the charities we will be raising funds for. Where AmaBDB charities are coming from, they were established in 1996. And over the years since it was established, we have raised over 71 million rand for these official charities. If you are raising funds for our charities, we also give back to you as a runner. If you have signed up to raise funds for one of our charities, and then you let's say your target is 10,000 and you raise a minimum of 6,000 by the 6th of May, you get to start on C badge. So regardless of your qualifying time, on race day you will start on C badge, whether you qualify with sub 450, sub 430, sub 4, you get to start on C badge, which is much of a benefit for you. But this is just to encourage you as a runner. But also the bigger picture is this is mostly the funds that you raise get to do the work that these charities are doing in different communities. Next slide, please. So if you would like to join one of our charities or raise funds for one of them, as Pat mentioned earlier, there are 3 ways you can raise funds for our charities. It's either you sign up to raise funds for charity, 2, you donate with your entry, 3, or buy a raffle ticket and stand a chance to win a vehicle on race day. But that only applies for South Africans only. So if you have registered and did not sign up for our charities, you can log into your EasyReg profile or go to comrades.com and go and sign in. Once you click on sign in, you will be redirected to this page here on your screen, which is EasyReg. At the top there, you can see login. Once you press login, you will be required to put in your username or email and the password that you've created when you were signing up for Comrades Marathon. Can I have the next slide, please? So that's where you put in your login details. If you have forgotten your login details, you put in a forgot password. You'll get a link that will redirect you to reset your password. Always advise people to just make it easy. You just need 6 characters for that password on EasyReg. You can either write your name or just Comrades or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not too strict. I know a lot of people always call and with problem that they have forgotten their passwords, but it's you can just simplify your life and just make your password as easy as possible. So once you have pressed login here, you will be redirected to a page where you will be required to fill in your details. You go to your entry, and then on dashboard, you scroll down. When you scroll down to your entry, there, your Comrades entry, you will see a page that says join for race for charity towards the bottom. Once you click on join race for charity, you will be redirected where you can fill in your details and choose your charity, the charity that you wish to raise funds for. Please, next slide, please. So once you've pressed in join, this is the page where you will be redirected to. One, you confirm yes, you want to raise funds for charity. You want to raise for charity. You will be required to put in an image of yourself or whatever that you want to appear on your profile on your raise for charity. And then number 2, you select the charity that you wish to raise funds for. So the only charities you can raise funds for are the 6 official charities that I have just mentioned before. Those are the options you will find there. And then below that, once you have selected the charity, you can just tell us a story. Maybe why is that charity close to your heart, or why do you wish to raise funds for that particular charity? Below that, you set your target. You can raise as much as you can. I think this year we have a gentleman that is his target is 500,000. Most people will put in 10,000 rand, some 6,000 rand, or some even below that. There isn't any problem with selecting any amount that you think you'll be able to raise. Once you have selected your target, you can always change your target at any time, or you can always raise funds and go over and above what you have selected as your target. Then the last thing there where they ask yes or no, do you wish Comrades Marathon to share your contact details with the charity? So basically this is because of the Poppy Act. In order for us to share your contact details with the charity, you will need to press yes. What charities do from time to time, they will contact you just to check how you are going with your fundraising. Also to assist you to make your life easy when you are fundraising for them, and also to just personally thank you for your efforts that you're putting into to raise funds for them. Once you press save, then you will receive a link within 10 minutes. And then your name will appear on the list of runners that are raising funds for charities. Then you can share that link with your friends, family, or any donors that or any people that you think will be able to assist you with your fundraising efforts. They can chip in as little as 10 rand or any amount that they wish to assist your fundraising efforts with. If you can see on the list that appears there, the gentleman is his target is 100,000. That's the person who is leading. So that's the leaderboard. The more funds you raise, the more then your name will go at the top of that list. So at the moment, our top fundraiser is has raised 31,180 rand out of 100,000, which is total target. If you see below that, Nato Amaral, his target was 30,000 and he has raised 30,422 rand, which is over and above what he set to be his target. He still has a long way up until the race day to raise more money. If you're lazy to change your target and increase it, you can raise funds up to whatever amounts that you are able to raise. It doesn't matter whether you have set your target low or high. And then this is the last option to assist our charities, the Toyota Win a Car competition. So Toyota has provided us with a vehicle to run this competition. On race day, the draw is at 4:45 in the afternoon. This competition is open to the public as well as to the runners. The tickets that get you an entry or that make you stand to win a vehicle on race day is just 50 rand. You can get these tickets from any of the charities that I've just mentioned, or if they are far from you, you can get your tickets online on Comrades website under the charity tab. You can buy your tickets. You can buy as many tickets as you wish. Just know all the funds or proceeds from these tickets go directly to our charities. Nothing goes to Comrades or Toyota for that matter. No, thank you so much. I think that was it about our charities. Hopefully we will be getting more people to sign up for our charities, and also follow us on Comrades social media for more updates. Thank you.
Sifiso, thank you for jumping in at the last minute there. A couple of tech issues, of course, but yes. I mean, that's life in South Africa. We know how to deal with these things. Sifiso, there are one or two questions in the chat just around the seeding and so on. If you don't mind answering those, I've tried to answer them, but I think you will be better than me at that. So, but yes. Yeah, thank you for stepping in. And then let's thank you, Sifiso. Let's get cracking with why we're here, right? Women's webinar. I know Comrades are doing an amazing amount of work to really make the race feasible and exciting for women that are wanting to tackle this race. And so that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're here to give you all the information that you want to get to help you tackle this race. So I'm going to present a little bit on the coaching front, and then from there we'll include Nikki. Who's our resident dietitian. And of course, we're going to stick around for a very, very long Q&A as well. So please, guys, keep some questions coming. We are going to answer as many questions as we can. I will take some questions after my presentation, and then we'll definitely get stuck into these as we go along. Okay, so, but yeah, here we go. The up run, as I mentioned, I think it feels a little bit like everyone is going to be a novice because it's been such a long time since we have done the up run. And this course is scary, and I know that every time I listen to Lindsay speak, I want to put this up here for you, not to make you petrified, but to make you scared enough that you want to start doing the things that make you really realize what you need to do to get the right kind of training done. Okay, and so you are probably going to be climbing for at least the first 38 kilometers. It does tend to level out a little bit, but there will be many more hills as we're going through that race. And so yes, it is the up run, and it's very exciting that is the up run time. This is what we want, right? This could be you. These are our heroes. Of course, we may not be finishing first, second, and third in that sort of order. But what we really want as Comrades Marathon is that this must be you. We want you to be crossing that line and feeling that exhilaration of crossing that line. This has to be you. And there's a couple of things you have to do to get to that point, right? And so what is the number one reason for failure, for not finishing Comrades? And there's a few things, of course, but as Coach Parry and as Lindsay, what we did is over a couple of years ago, we sent out a survey and we asked people why they didn't finish and what were the reasons. We asked people whether they had injuries or not. And one of the big things that came out was that 68% of the runners who did not finish Comrades started the race with an injury. And this is really key, because I think there's a general perception within Comrades runners, or not just Comrades runners in general, that pain is fine, pain is okay. And it is not. Okay, so this is definitely one of the things I want to mention today, is that if you currently have an injury, we need to get that sorted. We have to make sure that you start Comrades injury-free and as fresh as possible. That is the goal for us. We want you to be finishing this race. Where are we now? We are 100 days to go. I quite like that this is where we're at. We are 100 days to go. We're in double digits as of tomorrow. And so we're going to be entering our peak training in and around the 18th of March. Okay, so right now you're sort of in the phase where you've maybe qualified, or you might be about to qualify. Okay, so that's very often the phase that people are in. And we really want to be focusing on a few things right now. We're not in our peak training phase. We're building a base, but we also really want to be focusing on strength training and really good nutrition. And I'll go through some strength training things with you. But Nikki is also here to go through some nutrition. And so where we now, the build up is real. We're building up to that peak training phase. As I mentioned, you really want to be focusing on your recovery. We want to make sure that you're not skimping on your rest days, that you're not cheating on those rest days. Those rest days are absolutely key. And we also want to be focusing on good nutrition. Part of your rest and recovery is that you're focusing on really good sleep as well. And that is absolutely vital. So that is where we are now. I'm going to go through where you should be as different levels of the medal. So if you're aiming for a finisher's medal, in and around that finisher's medal, you should be at the moment hitting around 40 to 45 kilometers a week. If you're going for a bronze, you're looking at around 50 kilometers a week. Robert Machali, we're looking a little bit more up to around 50 kilometers a week. That is where we are now. Bill Rowan, Lindsay always, jokes around with the Silva and the Isabel Roche Kellys, that these guys have, these women and men have very little personal relationships and family life. And so they're hitting 110 Ks a week, and our Bill Rowans are hitting more around 70 kilometers a week. And that's sort of where you want to be at the moment. If you're not there, that's okay. That doesn't mean you must suddenly jump up to that. It just means that that's sort of where we're at. And especially if you're in and around qualifying, that is where you probably are right now. In the next 4 weeks, this is where we want to build up to. So our finishers are building up towards 50 kilometers a week, bronze medals around 60 Ks a week, Robert Machali's around 65, and our Bill Rowan's hitting maybe 80 Ks. And of course, as I mentioned, around the Silvers and the Isabel Roche Kellys, also hitting around 120 Ks a week. So we will be building up within the next 4 weeks to those bigger miles. But again, I just want to stress that it's really, really important that if you're not in those sort of phases, that you don't suddenly jump. That slow progression is important. And it's really important. Why? Because we don't want to pick up an injury. You don't want to be a part of that 68% that didn't finish the race because you started with an injury. That is really, really important. So what do we want to do over the next 4 weeks? We want to make sure that you take care of any injuries that you do currently have. So if you're currently nursing a niggling pain or a niggling injury, it's really, really important that you go get that checked out. All right. We don't want to be carrying that from now into the rest of our peak training and into race day. So if you are carrying a niggle, now is the time that you want to sort that out. Now is the time that you want to maybe take a few days off, see a physio, get that sorted. Okay. And the other aspect that we can really, really do is strength work. And I'm going to get to that because it's really important to help keep us injury free. Seeding it is important, right? You want to make sure that we're in good batches and that we have time to cross. And I think the important thing, and a lot of people always ask us, well, okay, fine, I've got into an H batch, but maybe I should be. Can I run a fast marathon? I know Vol's coming up this weekend. Should I be running Vol to really improve my seeding? It's really important, guys, and I want to state this like absolutely, that chasing a seeding or chasing the pen is going to put you at more risk, right? You're going to be saving 2 to 3 minutes by getting a better seeding. Because let's be honest, most people aren't going to be able to improve their seeding by 2 batches. You're probably only going to be able to improve your seeding by 1 batch. And even with that, when you do that, when we race a marathon really, really hard, what we're doing is we're putting a lot of strain on our bodies. And that requires some recovery. If we don't recover, we're going to land up as a 68% who don't finish the race because we are injured. And so by pushing that seeding, by pushing to trying to get a faster seeding, you're literally saving yourself 2 to 3 minutes on race day. The really nice thing about the upper run is that the start line moves a lot quicker from Durban as it does from Pietermaritzburg. It's much quicker than it is because it's a lot wider. And so by pushing to save yourself 2 to 3 minutes on race day, you are risking recovery time, whereas we could run our marathons as good training runs and really gain training and building on that. And you could really build on saving yourself 10 minutes or 20 minutes on race day because of that training. And I always want to say this to people is that I know it's frustrating when you're in that seating and in that pen and walking your way and you keep looking at your watch going, oh my gosh, I'm losing 8 minutes here. But by saving yourself 2 minutes on race day in that seating, rather keep your easy runs easy and your long runs by not chasing the pen and allowing yourself that time to rather train. So let's get on to where and why we're here today. We're here because we're at the women's webinar. We're here to speak about things that are specific to you. And I followed a little bit of Dr. Stacey Sims' work, and I love this because she says, you're not a small man, so stop eating and training like one. And that's important because very often I feel like training plans have just been taken from what we've done for men, and we just sort of make it smaller and pink, then it's okay. And so it's really important that we do start looking at our physiology and why things are slightly different. And so what are the main differences between males and females? And it really does come down to our sex hormones. And part of that means that we have a menstrual cycle and men don't. Okay. And so this is really important. And it goes into a lot of why we are different. There is a little bit of research that's coming out to say that, oh, well, if you train at specific periods of time, so if you train within your cycle to sort of say within day 1 to 7, you might be working on certain things that will be beneficial. So if you do more strength training in this time, you will gain more. I just really want to put caution on that because the studies that have been done are not sort of reliable enough or deep enough to really make those assertions. But it's very clear that we are different to men and we do have different struggles to men. And I know when I've had really bad periods and menstrual cycles that sometimes I really don't feel like training. And so this is very key because it's not about just what's going on with your menstrual cycle or let's make it a blanket approach. Let's make sure that everyone trains the same way. So in day 1 to 7, in this period of your cycle, you're going to do X, and in this, you're going to do Y. That is not really how we want to do it. We want to make sure that we are training specific to you. So it's not a blanket approach, right? So every female is different. Menstrual cycle might move from anywhere from 28 days to 36 days. Some women have IUDs, and so they don't get a menstrual cycle. And so it's not a blanket approach, okay? More research is needed. But what can we do as females now? So this is really important. What I want to suggest to you is that you start tracking your menstrual cycle. Start tracking your symptoms. How did you feel? So on day 1 of my period, how did I feel? Did I have any headaches? Did I bloat? Was I fatigued? What was my flow like? Was I feeling very heavy at that point in time? How did you actually feel? Were you feeling tired? Were you depressed? Were you irritable? Did you feel energized? And also just note with that your training and nutrition on those days. There's a lot of apps that do this, that have this option for you where it's easy to track. I'm a little bit more old school with that. I think it's important sometimes to have a good old paper and pen, because data is important and data is valuable. So if we can have all of this and see, okay, well, actually, on day 1 of my period, I feel really bad. I have a headache. I'm pretty bloated. I feel miserable. I don't want to run. And that's why this is important, because now what you can start to do is you can start to figure out the trends of your cycle, how that affects you and how it affects your training. And from there, you can start to then make decisions on how to adjust your training. So as an example, as you're training and as you're going through things, and you know that on day 1 of your cycle, you don't feel good. So what we might want to do then is move, let's say on day 1 of your cycle, you have a hill session scheduled. You could then decide to move that session later in the week and rather put in an easy run, something that helps you feel a little bit better, or maybe just some strength training that helps you feel better, or a rest day. So start to develop trends for yourself to know that day 1 comes and this is how I feel. I might then just adjust things specific to myself. Okay. By keeping a track of your training that you're doing and the nutrition that you're taking in, the other thing that you can do then is then to just see, maybe there's some nutrition that I can take in that makes me feel a little bit better. And I'll let Nikki talk a little bit more on this. But okay, on these days, if I'm having some sort of, if I'm perhaps eating, some fish on that day, that's, going to help me and I feel a bit better, I'm going to then do that on those specific days. So it's really, really important to rather take the things that are specific to you and work them around your training in that way. It's not a blanket approach, and it's not something that we can say all females should train to this in the first week of their cycle, to this in the second week of their cycle, and they're going to feel better. And that's really important. And when we do another women's webinar, we're going to discuss a little bit more in and around ensuring that you have your menstrual cycle, because that is really important, and that the concepts in and around that. And if you're not getting your menstrual cycle, what that means. As an example, and this may be sharing a bit too much, but I have an IUD, so I don't get to necessarily track that. But it's important just to have an idea of where you are within that. All right, and so let's get on to some really important bits. So strength training and nutrition that's specific to females. So Nikki is obviously going to talk about nutrition. I will speak to you guys now a little bit about strength training. And I know you guys hear this all the time, right? Strength training is important, nutrition is important. And they are important if you're running Comrades. They are absolutely important. But as a female athlete, they are astronomically more important. And I'm going to go into a little bit of reasons why. I know this is stereotypical, but females are often known for a good shopping spree, right? And buying one and getting something free. I know my ex-boyfriend always shouts at me and always say, well, Shona, you didn't get a special. You spent money. You spent money that we didn't have. I was like, yeah, but it was on special, right? And this concept of buy one, get two free, I quite like it, because for me, it speaks around strength training. And what I mean by that, if you do strength training, you're going to get something. You're going to get one thing from doing strength training. But in actual fact, when you do it, you're going to get two things free. And of course, when you get a special, you have to buy something. You have to give money. So you have to give something, but you're going to get a couple of things free as well. And that's how I like to think about strength training. So the one thing you're going to get is you're going to get injury prevention. The two free things you're going to get is it's going to improve your performance. And the third thing you're going to get is that it's going to be building your bones and your lean muscle mass and prepping you for the future, which is really, really important as a female runner. And so let's go into a little bit more detail on these. All right, so the first thing, injury prevention. So as females, this is really important. As female runners, it's important as well. So our hips are wider than men's hips, okay? So they're slightly wider for obvious biological childbirth reasons. But with wider hips, what that means is that with wider hips, we tend to have a slightly more internal rotation of the hips. So our hips turn in a little bit. So this is the back and this is the front. And when our hips turn in a little bit more, our knees tend to drop in a little bit more. And every time we step, our hips are then having to stabilize us and our knees are dropping in. And so those biomechanics play a big role. And because ours are different to men's, we have to work a little bit harder. So if this is the back and this is the hip, if we strengthen our glutes a lot more, what happens is we then control that internal rotation. So our hips don't drop in as much, which means our knees don't drop in as much, which means every time we land, our knees aren't taking all of that pressure. So that's really, really important. And as females, our biomechanics are different. And what we're going to talk about in the next women's webinar has got a lot to do with the pelvic floor and how we work and use that to help our running. But this is key because, we've often just learned, do strength training. It's going to help you help you stay injury free, which is important. It is going to work for you in the same way it does for men. But as females, we do have different biomechanics. And I watch football as an example, and there's a lot that's going on in women's football at the moment where there's a massive increase in ACL injuries. ACL is a ligament within your knee, and it's got a lot to do with the female biomechanics. And so by doing strength training, we're helping to prevent injuries over time. And so we really want to ensure that we're doing strength training that's specific for running. Okay, so as I mentioned, we want to be doing stuff in and around our core. We're going to be doing stabilizers, a lot of glute work, a lot of hamstring work, and your prime movers, right? So that just means your quads, your hamstrings, your glutes. Those are things that are important for running. And so that's really, really key. The second thing, so you've bought one thing, you're getting another thing for free, is that it's going to improve performance. Okay, I don't need to tell you this really, but by doing strength training, you become a more efficient, faster running just by adding strength to your schedule. Okay, so I mentioned around your hips, right? So if your hips are dropping in, what tends to happen is we run like this. That's not an efficient way of running. So if we got that a little bit stronger, we then allow ourselves to move in a forward movement as opposed to this rotational aspect. And from a performance perspective, when I put this up, we want to make ourselves stronger to climb up these hills for this race. And the way to do that, aside from running, is by incorporating strength training and by making ourselves stronger to get up those hills. The first 38 kilometers, as I mentioned, is climbing. And then you're going to run some more, and then you're still going to climb a little bit more as we get towards the finish as well. So really, you want to be doing strength training to get you strong for these hills. And strength training is also proven within science to reduce fatigue. So they did a study within 10,000 meter runners, so guys who ran around the track, and a group that did strength training and a group that didn't. And the group that did strength training fatigued slower. They didn't get slower as they got towards the finish line. The guys that didn't do strength training got slower a lot quicker. So it's a bit of a no-brainer. This is the freebie you're getting, and it's going to make you better on race day. The third thing is building our bones, improving our lean muscle mass, and preparing for the future. So this happens to men as well, but this is specific to females. And very often I hear females say, I don't want to do strength training because it's going to make me bulky. I'm scared of, I want to stay looking feminine in inverted commas, and I don't want to get bulky. But it's really important. Okay, so let me say this, is that more women suffer from osteoporosis and poor bone health than breast cancer, right? And we hear a lot about breast cancer, but no one speaks around the effects of osteoporosis. And doing strength training will help us make sure our bones stay stronger. So let me just mention this, and then I'm going to go into why this is so important. But we start losing around 0.5% of bone mass per year from the age of 25. So I don't know how old everyone is on this call, but I do know that generally the Comrades stats is that predominantly runners are 40, 35, 40, 45. And so we are losing 0.5% of our bone mass as females from the age of 25. This becomes exponential in that we are losing 4 to 6% of our bone mass in our peri and postmenopausal years. Okay, so that is really important, right? This is the foundation of our house, and we're losing that over time. And the way we can better that is with strength training. And from a lean muscle mass perspective, our muscles, we tend to lose our strength from our 30s onwards. Okay, so we can expect to lose around 3% of our muscle mass per decade. So from our 30s into our 40s, and from our 40s into our 50s, and from our 50s, it becomes exponential. And so this is not even talking around comrades. This is around your health and your longevity as a runner and as a person moving forward. And so strength training is going to help you look after your bones and build that lean muscle mass, because bones respond to a load. So when we load the bones, they get stronger. And yes, as a runner, you're loading the bones, but because you're running, you're doing a cyclic action, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. And that is good. It's going to help, but the bones require multi-directional force. And so that's why this is so, so, so important. So buy one, get two free. You are buying something, you're spending something. Strength training is not fun. I know you guys hate it. I'm a strength coach and I struggle to do my own strength training because I love running. But so we're going to spend a little bit. We're going to spend a little bit of money. We're going to get one thing. We're going to get injury prevention, but we're going to get two things free. You're also going to get improving your running performance. So getting up those hills at Comrades. And then thirdly, you're going to get an aspect that as a female is really going to help you moving forward in life, which means you're going to get really, really good health and bone health and lean muscle mass. And you're getting those two things for free, right? By doing strength training. It's really, really key, guys. I love the questions that are coming through. So I will definitely be answering a couple of those, and I might answer it as I keep going through here. So let me carry on. So what strength training? I think there was a question that came through. Well, how often and what should we be doing? Guys, so people often say, oh, well, I do Pilates, I do yoga, I cycle. Is cycling strength training? Is swimming strength training? And what I'm talking about, in order to buy one, get two free, what I'm talking about here is resistance training, okay? It doesn't necessarily mean weight training. It means pushing your body against a form of resistance. So think of a push-up. You are pushing your body weight against a form of resistance. It's a weight, okay? And so that is what we need. I mentioned the bones need a form of resistance against them to get a little bit stronger. So you want to be doing resistance training. That can be, as I mentioned, body weight. And then once we get stronger, you might then incorporate some bands. And then eventually, yes, we might be doing some weight training. And I love Pilates. I love yoga. They are excellent. They are brilliant for injury prevention. But as females, we want to be doing some injury prevention, and we also want to be doing some resistance training. Cycling and swimming, those I would regard more as cross training. That's going to help you build your engine, your aerobic engine. Okay, and cycling is really good for the up run because it is going to make our legs stronger, but it's not going to help us look after our bones. Okay, so that's where we really, really want to just make sure that we're getting the right aspect there. How often should we be doing strength training? Ideally, twice a week. Okay, so if you're a female and you're running Comrades, ideally twice a week. If you're a female over the age of 45, I would really say 3 times a week, because then we can start to reverse the effects of aging, right? That's scientifically proven. If you do 3 strength sessions a week, you can reverse those effects. You can reverse the bone loss. You can reverse the loss of lean muscle mass. But we're Comrades runners, and I'm also a realist. I know that that's not always feasible. And at Coach Perry, we always have a saying that, 2 is better than 1 and 1 is better than none. Okay, so if you are just starting out and you really don't know what to do, start with 1 session a week, just 1. Okay, and these sessions don't need to be long. They need to be 30 to 45 minutes long. You will be way better doing 1 strength session a week from now until Comrades than doing 2 and then nothing, and then 2 and then 3 and then nothing. 2 is better than 1 and 1 is better than none. And then, when do we stop doing strength training? Yes, we are running, and I do think that this is important. So as we're doing strength work, we want to reduce the load of strength in our recovery weeks. So when we are building up in our training, and when we have a week where we bring down the running, we also want to bring down our strength training. And in our big weeks, and when I say by big weeks, I mean the runs that you are doing when we're doing our long runs. If you're using 2 Oceans as a long run, if you're doing your Comrades long run, or you're using marathons as training, in those weeks, I would drop the strength sessions down. I would minimize the amount of volume that you're doing. And then finally, in the build up to Comrades, you want to stop doing strength training 10 days before Comrades. So if you are doing strength work twice a week, I would say that 2 weeks out from race day, you could then only do one strength session in that week. And then the last week before Comrades, definitely no strength training, because as we taper our running, we also want to taper our strength work as well. And then other things to consider with strength work, the progression is really important. So I'm saying strength training is important, guys. If you have never done any strength work, don't just jump out there and start deadlifting 100 kgs. You are going to get injured. Okay, so start slow. Start with one session a week. Start with 2 rounds of that session. Make sure it's body weights, and we build up. As we're getting into our peak Comrades training, yes, we really want to make sure that we're strong enough to do that, but we also obviously want to be running enough as well. So that progression is key. And then lastly, which is really, really, really important, anyone can get a strength plan anywhere. You can get it anywhere. You can Google it. I know Coach Perry has a free strength training plan that we offer, but it's about how you do these exercises. That's really, really important. How you activate the right muscles at the correct times. And so those are 2 very, very key things. And in that aspect, I do think that less is more, very, very much. All right. There's some questions there that I'm happy to put up or to answer. So I'm just going to drop this slide. Sorry, and I'm going to take 1 or 2 questions before I bring Nikki on to give her presentation. Guys, I see there's a couple of people on here, and so yeah, please keep questions coming. I love answering questions. I know Nikki will definitely answer a couple of questions too. Let me answer this one from Maud. Maud is asking question regarding the menstrual cycle. What do I do? Should my period come on race day or during the race? Is there a way that one can pause it to an earlier or later date? And Maud, that's a great question. Nice to see you or hear you again, Maud. I'm not a medical doctor, and in our next women's webinar, we're hoping to have a sports physician with us who will be able to answer this question a lot better than I can. And there are ways that I know people can, and the athletes I've worked with who are going to world championships and so on. If you're on the oral contraception, there are ways that we can then obviously move that you're not, if you know you're going to get your period on race day, that you would then shift that oral contraception so that you're not taking the placebo on race day. But I would always say that you need to speak to your physician about that to make sure that that is safe for you to do. But yeah, it's not something I would recommend that you do often, because you're messing around with your hormones and so on then. And for the most part, coming on race day, and we'll touch on this in the second women's webinar for sure, around how to deal with these things on race day. The things I can say is you want to obviously be prepared. You know you're going to have your cycle, your period on race day. So you want to make sure that you have your different sanitary wear with you. I know the toilets aren't always the best. But one thing I can say for sure, and I know Comrades did this last year, for those who maybe unexpectedly come onto their period on race day, is that at all the Netcare medical stops, they ensured that there was emergency sanitary wear, that if you struggled and you found out that you're on race day, that you're on your period, that the Netcare stops ensured that they had sanitary wear. So just check that out, but try and be prepared. If you think you might come on that day, try to just prepare for that. All right, thanks, Maud. That's a great question. And then same thing here with Caitlin. I'm going to ask this as well, just because it's come up, but will taking the injection a month before Comrades have any negative impact on my body, training hormones? I suffer badly with pain once a month, and I don't want to have a cycle on Comrades. So yeah, so Caitlin, again, I just to reiterate that's not something I necessarily want to answer because I'm not a physician, but I do think that is something to discuss with your doctor. And as I mentioned, hopefully we will have Doc Pato, who joins us in our next webinar, where she will definitely be able to help you with that question. So the next women's webinar is I think it's on the 17th of April. So we'll mention that at the end. But yes, so guys, yeah, that is just important to mention. But yeah, so those are some of the things that from a training perspective. But again, just to reiterate, I think the important thing is to monitor your own training and come up with those trends and see what works for you, so you can adjust your training in and around your cycles. All right, but that is it from me. Keep some questions coming if there's anything specific in and around strength. Just to mention, I will definitely be in the next women's webinar. We're going to be focusing a little bit more on some breast health issues, so good sports bras. I'm going to be talking around the pelvic floor as well, which will be really, really interesting. But if there are other questions with regards to strength training, pop them in the chat here. I'll definitely stick around and answer those. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite Nikki on stage. Nikki, I'm going to add you on stage here. There we go. Hi, Nikki. Nice to have you with us. I'm going to unmute you. There we go. Hi, Nikki. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks so much. Exciting to be here. Yes, so really
Good.
honored to share a little bit about nutrition and where we need to be.
Thanks, Nikki.
Now,
I'm gonna hand over to you, and then yes, and we'll take one or two questions, and then we do have a guest speaker as well. So as soon as Nikki's done, we'll take one or two questions, then we'll bring Cindy on, and then we'll hang around, guys, and answer as many questions as we can. So keep the questions coming for as long as you can. Cool. Thanks, Nikki. Handing over to you, and yeah.
Thanks. I think everybody can hear me. All good. Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about nutrition. This is what's on the menu. I'm going to talk about energy. So this is quite a big thing tonight that I think I must talk about. The rest we're going to touch on nutrients, timing, and fueling a run. But I think I see quite a few distance runners at the moment in practice. And this is one of the cornerstones that I nag everybody to please eat more. I think the question that you can answer yourself is, did you really adjust any of your dietary intake when your training increased, either the intensity or the duration? And if you answer no on that, just think if it makes sense. So if we start spending more and more energy, does it not make sense that we should eat more? I think a lot of us are hungry, so you tend to eat more, but a lot of us fall behind. So we eat for what we've done instead of eating for what we're going to do. Okay, so let's get into this. So in terms of energy balance, it is important because I know often there's quite a few of us also that wants to lose maybe 2 or 3 Ks before we go into your marathon or maybe into the Comrades. And that we want to then manipulate our energy balance so that we lose weight. And I think we all understand the energy balance by now, that energy in versus energy out is basically what we're looking at, or always looked at, let me put it that way. But I think we need to understand, if we talk about the energy out, the calories out, we need to understand that there's quite a few components to this. So we've got a resting metabolism. Now, guys or girls, this is what, if you stay in bed the whole day and you do nothing, the resting metabolism is what it costs for the body to do everything it's supposed to do. So this is the energy that it costs the heart to work, the kidney, the lung, the eye, the brain, all those kind of things. If it's working, it takes energy. So this is the resting metabolism. I'm coming back to this, so I just want you to remember that terminology. On top of that, we also spend on a day-to-day energy, we spend on what we call thermic effect of food. So every time we eat, the body uses energy to digest and absorb food. It's not a lot, but it's there. And then we've got daily activities that we do. So some of us is desk bound, so we sit at a desk the whole day and only do your runs, but some of us are moving throughout the day. So we need to consider that energy, and then we need to consider how much energy is your running and your strength training adding to your day and your cross training or whatever. And that makes up the total amount of energy. And if we want to balance that, we need to look at the calories in, and the fight will then be, should we eat carbohydrate, protein, fat? But this is the only way in which we can get calories. The other way is adding alcohol to that, but I wouldn't put that on a slide necessarily. So if we're in an energy balance, it seems like our weight is constant or consistent. But now I see often so many people that is eating very little and training very hard, and they don't lose weight. And that is for them frustrating. And what I then see is we become more and more restrictive in terms of what I'm eating. And that can then be negative on your performance, but also on your health. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. and move away from the energy balance part of it and moving to, if we don't have a balance, what happens? And we get a term that we call low energy availability. Now, this is a little bit different, and I'm going to take time to go through these slides. I will hurry it up towards the end, but this is a little bit different than energy balance, because a low energy availability is defined as, you can see in the illustration there, so your energy that you take in, we start with that. So everything that you eat and drink that contains kilojoules or contains energy. And then we deduct from that the energy that you spend on your exercise. So say, for instance, I ate 5,000 kilojoules a day, or let's go calories. So say I ate 2,000 calories. You did a run this morning and your watch shows you spent 600 calories. So the energy availability is then the 2,000 that you take in minus the 600 that you spend on training. And that what is left over is what we call energy availability. Why? Available for what? This energy availability is then available for physiological function. Very much that basal that I spoke about. No, physiological function, I mean the energy for the heart and the lung and the liver and the kidney and so forth. Now, if we're not going to have energy available for that physiological function, what is going to happen? I mean, it makes sense. The body is going to do a budget cut. So see the basal as your budget. If you don't have enough, so the body will always give preference to your running or to your exercise. It cannot make you stop the exercise. It tries, it really makes you tired, but it cannot, you will still go out and run. So that bill will always be paid first. And whatever is left, the body will do budget cuts around the physiological function. And that on the one side can influence performance, and on the other side, it can actually influence health in a big, big, big way. So that budget cuts is usually then towards all the bodily systems. But usually what is the big, the departments that gets the big cuts is usually the immune system, that we get sick as soon as we load a little bit of the intensity or the duration, or you didn't sleep well tonight or whatever, or there's extra stress there. That remember, your body has only got one energy volt. So if you're fighting with your partner, or if you're not sleeping, or you have a late night partying or whatever, it comes out of the same energy bundle, right? So the body will then have, the immune system is the one system that gets the huge cut, and the other one is what we call the anabolic system. So a lot of hormones that's got to do with muscle building, with recovery, those kind of things. They also get a big, big, big cut, because the body see that it's not really necessary to build more muscle, because I don't have enough budget to even sustain what I have. So what is the effects then of this? They call the energy availability, a low energy availability is called LEA. You will hear quite a few people talk about LEA. And if you look at where the problems comes, this is now, I'm not going to go into so much detail on these, but this is where the problems can come health-wise. So first of all, the immune system that I spoke about. The other thing that's a clear indication is the menstrual function. So as soon as you stop having a period, or you lose your period whilst you're training, it is probable that you're not eating enough. So the body will decrease the anabolic hormones, right? So it's going to decrease the estrogen, and therefore your menstrual period is going to stop. This is not, I know sometimes we think, oh, lucky me. But this is not a good sign, because this estrogen, as Shona spoke a lot about the bone, and this is very, very important for bone formation. So if we lose period, it's not a reward for hard training. It is really a red flag for being attentive to what's going on. Because as soon as you lose that, you're going to decrease your bone density, and that can lead to stress fractures, or that you get extreme bone stress with pain. So that is very, very important that we look at that. Other endocrine stuff that can happen, it's not only estrogen, a lot of our progesterone, also our thyroid hormone, also our growth hormone. So all our anabolic hormones will decrease. So that will also cause us, not just in terms of performance to not recover, but in terms of health, to have a abnormal hormone profile. And cardiovascular also, the body starts mobilizing lipids, so therefore your cholesterol levels will then increase. So metabolically, what usually happens, the body will then decrease the metabolic rate. And remember, I said some of us feel that we train so hard and we don't lose weight. And it's often because the body made the adjustment in terms of decreasing the metabolic weight as such. What's happening in the blood, it can often lead to iron deficiency anemia. In younger athletes or in kids, it can decrease the growth and the development of the person. And then a big influence on the psychological system. So a lot of connection between this and mood, negative mood, feeling overwhelmed, those kind of um, symptoms that we experience. Cardiovascular, as I said, to get an increase in cholesterol as such, and the gastrointestinal channel can also it can flare up. So I also have a lot of people in my office that's got a gastrointestinal channel that all of a sudden they get bloated or they get diarrhea when they're running. And that's often also because we're eating too little and the body is not used to that. So very important to eat enough. What will happen in terms of the performance effect, I'm not going to go into big detail, but you can think if you don't have anabolic hormones, it means your recovery is really not good. So there's a decrease of strength and a decrease of power. But the other thing that can really happen is a decrease in endurance. And what you often will feel is a decrease in recovery. So you're consistently tired, you're consistently sore, and it's really a battle to get your specific training program. So, yeah, a lot of slides and a lot of talking, really to ask you guys to really please just eat enough and eat for what you're going to do. And it makes 100% sense that if I'm going to run an hour versus 2 hours versus 3 hours, it costs a lot more energy, and that we need to be attentive to this. So the next question is usually, so what must we eat more of, right? Because now we need to start fighting. Is it fat? Is it protein? Is it grains or whatever? And I think, guys, if you look at the food groups, we must eat more of all the food groups. So you will see the first three food groups there, the vegetables, the fruits, the grains. Those are the food groups that contribute mostly to our carbohydrate intake. And our carbohydrate is quite important as a fuel source. So when the body runs or when the body does any exercise, it uses carbohydrate and fat as a mix of fuel sources. And that is dependent, the one that's dominant is dependent on the intensity. So the higher the intensity of the run, the more carbohydrate, the less fat, the lower intensity, more fat and less carbohydrate. Another stop here. Please, guys, some of us think that if we're not fast runners, we don't use any carbohydrate. But that is not true. So if you run quite at a medium pace, you will take about 50% of what you use. So if I burn 500 calories, 250 calories will then be approximately of that will then be coming from carbohydrate. And 250 calories is about 62 grams. That's about 4 slices of bread. That's a 500 kilocal session at a moderate pace. And that is what it costs. And a lot of us will run in the morning without eating anything. We will not eat during the time. We don't have time to eat after our run. And that's why we run into trouble. No wonder the body then thinks I'm in a deficit. And therefore I need to start storing. The other two columns that's indicated here, the dairy and the protein, that's the two groups that mainly provides us with protein in the diet. So protein is used, a little bit of it is used as an energy source, but the body doesn't prefer doing that. So that's mainly our recovery nutrients. So that is what we look at eating after. But especially in terms of if we older runners or we get older, where we start losing muscle, it is important that we do include protein in about 4 to 5 meals throughout the day. So that's about every 3 hours to have some protein rather than to overdo and eat protein only at one meal. So this would include nuts at a meal, or you will have a spoon of peanut butter and so forth. I'll come with practical examples just now. And then the fat is usually is throughout all these food groups. Now the question is, should we then not eat more fats? If we a slower runner, should I not rather eat fats because that's what I mainly use? But most of us, the body has more than enough fat to really run 2, 3, 4 marathons. So the problem with fat is if we're going to feed fat whilst we're training, fat takes a long time to clear your stomach. So it's really going to be uncomfortable. Should we then avoid fat at all costs? Not at all. That's not what I'm saying. So a lot of the fats that we eat can have quite be advantageous for you in terms of that it's got an anti-inflammatory effect. I think you've heard about the anti-inflammatory effect of the omega-3 fatty acids, but the foods that's quite high in this would be the seeds, sunflower seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, fatty oily fish, salmon, mackerel, those trout, those kind of things. It's got a very high omega-3 fatty acid, and that can be anti-inflammatory, and especially in females throughout when there is throughout menstruation, when there's increase in inflammation, it makes sense to eat more of these things. But I would pretty much say and go as far as rather include it at a regular basis, that you eat it often throughout. So just to illustrate for you in terms of what we need to run, these slides shows you, look at the bottom one first, that the one with the pink, the green, and the blue bars. This will indicate, so the bars at the bottom indicate intensity. So the pink bar that you see there is if you run at low intensity, the green one is medium, and the blue one is high intensity running. And there you can see if we're very low in intensity running, you will see that we use predominantly fat and a little bit of carbs. And as we go into medium running, there's usually a crossover point there where the carbs will then start taking over and the fat will be dropping. And this is because of the intensity, right? So if we run high intensity, you use more carbs. Is it that if I run low intensity, I use no carbs? No, you still use the carbohydrate. So it's mainly for the fuel, for the muscle contraction, but it's also for blood sugar levels that we keep that consistent. The top little illustration, that will give you an indication in terms of duration. So as we increase in the duration, so if we run a 21K versus a Comrades Marathon, you will see the longer we run, the more fat we use. This is not necessarily saying that the body prefers the fat. It is just that the fat is available because the body does carbohydrate. So that decrease in the carbohydrate use is basically because you run out of it. So we usually refer to fat as a diesel tank. It can take you far, but not very fast, where the carbohydrate is the jet fuel. It can take you fast, but not very far. But always to remember that we do use both of this, and especially then in periods where you do your time trials, where you do your strength sessions, which is all high intensity activity, and when you do your hill repeats, where you train basically your speed work, you will need a lot more carbs during those kind of activities. All right, now we have to stop a little bit at micronutrients. So the micronutrients basically, guys, is just that we increase the quality, and I want to discuss just a few of them. That is important. We can't go through all of them, but these three are quite important for females, and it's quite important for sports, nutrition as well. So the first one is iron. So as females, we are at risk for iron deficiency, especially if you're still menstruating. And this iron deficiency, remember, oxygen is carried in iron, or iron is carried, is a part of the carrying molecule of oxygen. So if we don't have enough iron, there's less oxygen that's being carried in the blood, and that will obviously decrease your endurance performance as such. So make sure that depending on, doesn't matter if you're on a vegetarian diet or you do include meat, make sure there's enough iron sources in your diet. So this can be green leafy vegetables, it's red meat, it's liver, There's iron in beetroot, there's iron in raisins, there's iron in eggs. So please make sure that you do include some of these sources on a daily basis. Calcium is important for sports. So the one thing is for bone, and I think we all know that. But the other one is calcium is also important for muscle contraction. So as females, we are at risk that we, after menopause, will lose quite a bit of our bone. So we really need to make sure that we have a good bone density and we work on it all the time. It's a little bit like a savings account. You have to save in there and you should not use it until it's really, really necessary. So the sources is milk, cheese, yogurt, dark leafy greens, soybeans. I find a lot of people that I see choose not to have dairy products, and then they will choose milk alternatives like oat milk, or they will choose rice milk, or they will choose almond milk. So guys, this is quite important, that one of the reasons why the dairy products is in their own little food group is for the calcium content. So if we replace the dairy products with those kind of milks, you do lose out on calcium. So you have to make sure that if you do these substitution milks, that they are fortified with calcium. In other words, they usually are not naturally high in calcium. So when they fortify something, they add calcium to the milk. Otherwise, we must make sure that we eat other calcium sources, which is usually fish with bones, like sardines and trouts and those kind of things. And some of the eggs will also have calcium. So we have to make sure that we eat enough. Vitamin D. So vitamin D is really, really important. I think with COVID and everything, we really had we became attentive that it's really important for the immune system, but it's got a lot of function in the muscle as well. And we often think, but we run in the sun, so vitamin D should be more than enough. And it is true if you run in the sun. But very often we choose to run when it's not sunny. We go when early in the mornings, or we go late in the afternoons because the sun is way too hot to run in. So it's important to make sure there's enough vitamin D. The food sources are not that high. It's usually mushrooms has got a little bit, fatty, oily fish has got a little bit of vitamin D, but it's not huge. I think most of you will know it's about the sunlight on the skin. So those of you that run in times where you know when it's a little bit darker or there's not a lot of sun, please make sure that you get a little bit of sun throughout the day, 15-20 minutes. So if you read a book or something like that, just go and sit in the sun for a period of time so that we make sure our vitamin D status is all good and cleared. Going to quickly go through the nutrient timing. This is where we get a little bit practical. I've got two slides here. The one is for those of you that run in the morning, and the other one for those of you that run in the evening time or late afternoon. So first of all, look at the timing. The idea would be, guys, that we eat as when you wake up, to try to eat something within the hour. Those of you that's not good in the morning of eating, it can be a little snack. Those of us that's good can have a full breakfast, but without putting running in the equation, the basic principle is eat within an hour and try and eat every 3 hours thereafter. That usually will give you some of us will be okay with 3 meals. It's just that when you train, you're probably going to have to add another 2. And some of us, the other thing I want you to think of is, when do you eat your most food, the most amount of food, the volume? And when do you spend the most energy in the day? And if you're a morning runner and you spend the chunk of your energy in the morning, but you only start eating after lunch because that's when you get hungry, you can understand that the message that you give your body is that the body has to, whatever you do in the afternoon, it needs to store the stuff, because tomorrow morning she's going to run again without any fuel available. Okay? So the idea is, if you're a morning runner, to eat something before training, during training sets, especially if the training exceeds an hour and a half, to make sure that you take something there. I'm coming back to what it should contain. To have something after training, to have then a snack between after training is usually the breakfast and the lunch, then a snack between lunch and dinner, then you'll have dinner, and if you're still awake, a late night snack. The combination of the food, your lunch and your dinner, should contain all three basically food groups. It needs to have a protein in it. Can be plant protein or meat or fish or chicken or eggs or cheese. It needs to have a grain in it, so carbohydrate source. The grains sometimes you can replace with fruits if fruit is more available, but that would be rice or bread or a wrap or cereal if you want that for lunch. And it should contain a vegetable if you can, like a stir fry in the wrap or a salad in the wrap, or you will have carrots with your chicken or something like that. The snacks in between, we prefer to have, remember I said it's important to have protein every 3 hours, so the snacks in between to have a carb and a protein source. So carb, think if I say carb, it's either a fruit or a starch, always with a protein combination. So you would have cheese on a cracker, or you would have apple with peanut butter, or a handful of nuts with raisins, or you can have roasted chickpeas. So something like that as in between snacks. It's not huge portions, it's just a handful to carry you through. So the examples I have here is indicated on the side. I'm going to talk more about the examples if I go into the afternoon runners. So you will see with the afternoon runners, you will have a breakfast, which can be, the breakfast that I have here is egg and toast and tomato. The snacks, something like yogurt and fruit. Your lunch, a sandwich, maybe with chicken and lettuce and tomato. Before your run, maybe a cereal, especially if you run in the afternoon, but when you do run races, you do it in the morning. Try to, whatever you eat in the afternoon before your run, make it the same that you will do in the morning before the race, so that your body can get used to it and you can see how your body react to it. Then during the run, if the run is greater than 90 minutes, you will have a sports drink. After run, a Steri Stumpy is usually a good idea. I'll come into more detail there. Supper, the example that I have here is chicken with rice and vegetables. And the late night snack, something like toast with peanut butter and a banana. Okay, so that would be the distribution and how you put your day together. Don't wait for hunger, because hunger comes at the wrong time, because then you already has finished all your runs, and then you get hungry at supper, and then there's a train smash because we eat too much. Just a few notes on before training. So before training, the main emphasis is to be fully hydrated, to make sure you've got liquid, but also to make sure there's fuel for your run. And the fuel should be how much you think you're going to spend in the run. Okay, so if I run 5Ks, maybe 5 grapes will be fine. But 5 grapes is not going to take me to 30Ks. So you need to adjust according to that. So before the short run, you can drink about a cup or 2 cups of fluid. It can be water, it can be coffee, it can be tea, it can be juice. We also want a small snack, best to have low fiber carbs, especially if you struggle with your gut. So something like a good morning breakfast biscuit, or a fruit, or a muffin of some sort if you're used to fiber, or a cracker or rusks or something like that. And that should be about 30 to 60 minutes before the run. And then in the longer run, we still have the carbohydrate, but now after the fluid intake, but now you can make it into maybe a carb drink, and then obviously a bigger meal. If we move to what to take during your run, what is important is carbohydrate then and fluid, and you need to maybe look at electrolytes. Now, what we take during a run, guys, I know a lot of you guys can really run great distances without fueling at all. And I think as females, we're even better with it, that we can really pace in a way that we feel we don't need these things. But what I really want to stress, where you are now in running, and especially with the volumes that's happening now, please have the carbs to train your gut to accept the carbohydrates that you're going to use on Comrades. You can't never have carbohydrates and then think on the day, now I'm going to do sports drinks and jellies and chews and all these things and potatoes, but you've never trained with it. The gut is not used to that. So the gut is like your muscle. It's like your calf muscle. It needs to train to adjust to what you're going to have. So it's important that we do take carbs about every 20 minutes, and we try and achieve a carbohydrate intake of about 45 to 60 grams an hour. That's quite wide, but it's basically the 60 gram is for the faster runner, and the 45 grams is usually for the slower runner, as I explained before. So just be practical in what you take. The composition does matter, but practice what you will do on race day. So sometimes you will do just the drinks, sometimes just bananas. But if you're going to do the whole Comrades with bananas, you're going to really have to carry quite a few bananas with you. A lot of us will combine stuff. So you will combine maybe a sports drink with a chew, or you will do potatoes maybe with a banana, those kind of things. And this will give you an indication of how much of these kind of carbohydrate sources you would need to get to a 30 gram of carb. So if you eat banana, about 1 to 1.5 bananas will give you 30. Remember I said I want to try and get you to 45 grams of carbohydrates. So we all will start at 30 and then slowly move it up. 1 to 1.5 gels will give you 30 grams, about 6 chews. If you have jelly beans, about 15 jelly beans will give you 30 grams of carbs, and 1 to 1.5 energy bar will get you there. So when you take carbohydrates, start early. Eat when it feels as if it's not necessary, because somewhere in the race you're probably going to feel, I can't eat anymore. But then if you had enough in the front part of your races or in the front part of your long runs, you're usually okay. Be consistent with intake. Little bit every now, with consistency is much better than trying to gulp down 500 ml of a Coke and try to feel better. And be flexible in a sense of, if all of a sudden everything is just so sweet, you can do nothing, be flexible. Take a handful of the potatoes, or, have an orange next to the road. Be flexible with what you taking, because the variety does, in terms of taste, does make it easier to get it down. And then after training, to make sure, we usually talk about the 3 R's, so make sure to refuel. This is the most important. So this is not that important for Comrades. This is important for your recovery now, to make sure you get the carbohydrate as quickly as you can, then add a little bit of fluid to it, and then only add the protein. I think the biggest thing that I can warn against here is a lot of us think a recovery is drinking a protein shake. And the protein really is a recovery nutrient. I said that before, but you need to have all these things in combination, because if you're only going to have protein, the protein is going to be used as an energy source, because the body will first see to energy before it sees to muscle building. Very much like I explained in the beginning. All right. And then just a little bit on race day, do not experiment with anything new. And the reason why I put this slide up here is experiment now with what's going on in your running. Right, don't wait for race day. You need to know exactly what works and what doesn't work. And I gave you here indication for race day then. So the reason why I put this slide here is this is what you should work towards to try and achieve. So slowly but surely building up to this. So this is an example for somebody weighing 65 kilograms. So 2 to 3 hours before your event, to have oats with milk, honey, and bananas. You will see the volumes there. I think there's a lot of us that's not even close. We take a slice of toast and we think we're going to run a marathon. Then the pre-events can also be an hour prior to, so especially if you eat less, 2 to 3 hours prior to do, and to have a snack just before you go. So it's something that you can carry maybe to the start line. Then check in terms of what you're going to have during, when are you going to have it, how much of it you're going to have, who's going to carry it, what's happening to it. You need to train now. Does it get gooey? Is it easy to eat? Is it quite hard to swallow? And then your after intake would be something like a glass of flavored milk with a fruit, a nut, or packet of peanuts and raisins with a flavored milk, and that will get you there. But it's not necessarily going to be there every time you finish training. You must make sure that it is there and that you start it as quickly as is comfortable. Okay, thanks so much. I hope there's some things that you guys can maybe identify that we can work on. It's quite a mouthful. And I don't know, Shona, are we going to answer a few questions, or are we going to do it all at the end?
Yeah, I think, Nikki, I'm just going to ask one question to you, and then because there are some really, really great questions, and then because we've got another guest speaker, and I know we are running late. There's always so much to want to pack into this, and I really want to bring Cindy on. But just one question, Nikki. And I mean, you touched on low energy availability and so on. But Sonia is asking here. She says, is intermittent fasting even an option when you're training for Comrades? So just on that, and then obviously we'll touch on some other questions as we go on.
Yeah, I think the answer to this is, I mean, it's not really an option if there's a short answer to it. But we are all individuals, so I think you can make your body adapt to it. I just don't think it's to the advantage of the body, and I also don't think it's to the advantage of your run. So the body is adaptable towards anything you give it. It will adjust. That's the job of the body, and that's why it's so difficult for us to manipulate stuff, because the body is just writing programs in the background to counter us. But it's not going to be, it's going to put the body in a higher stress situation, and this is especially for females. So females is going to be very sensitive creatures for starvation. Okay, so we feel starvation much earlier than males. So therefore, you're going to increase what they call an inflammatory marker. They call it kiss peptide, and if that thing increases, then usually your body will experience stress. Now, the run already is stress to the body, and to put it in a fasted state, you're going to run into trouble. And especially with what it's going to cause the rest of the day in terms of intake as well. We often find there's actually a higher amount of food that's eaten, and a higher amount of food that's eaten from about 3-4 in the afternoon onwards. And that to the body then is, all right, feeding time, I'm going to put it away as fat. So depending on what you want to do it for, if it is for performance, answer is no. If you are healthy and there's nothing in terms of metabolic stuff, answer is no. All right, so intermittent fasting, not a performance enhancer. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you, Nikki. Love that. Yeah, Nikki, I'm gonna pop you off stage for now, and then we'll bring you back on just for a few questions in a little bit. Yeah, so thank you for that. Let me. I'm really excited to introduce, and guys, and I know it's late, so I really hope you hang around with us, because this is going to be well worthy to hang around for. But I want to introduce our guest speaker, and our guest speaker's name is Cindy Nkomo. So let me bring her on stage first. There we go. Let me just introduce Cindy to you guys. So Cindy is an avid Comrades runner. She's done 7 Comrades Marathon finishes. She's got a Robert Machali. She's got 5 bronze, and she's also got a Bill Rowan. She's a former acting CEO and director of operations for Boxing South Africa. She does a running content blog. She is a running content blogger and a developing athlete manager. She's also the director and founder of Utingo. Sazana. Sorry, I hope I got that right. Lewenko Sazana Solutions, a sports events management company, which among other events, for 5 years hosted Utingo Pre-Comrades Ladies Gala Evening, a formal send-off dinner for women during the Comrades Marathon each year. I love that, Cindy. I love it. The Gala Evening is a platform created to recognize and celebrate the efforts, sacrifices, and triumphant stories of women of South Africa training for the Comrades annually. The event has grown significantly, having started back in 2015 with only 12 women in attendance, and a sellout event now of 100 since 2017. So, Cindy, welcome. Thank you for being here with us. Or let me just hide this comment. So, Cindy, thank you for being here with us. I'm going to let you take it away and give us a little bit of your story and some motivation. Let me load your slides over there. And yeah, thank you for your time. And then, guys, I know it's late. I know it's been a long night, but hang around, because we're going to hang around. Nikki, myself, and Cindy are going to be around for questions. And so, yeah, please let us know. Pop them in the chat, and we can take it from there. So, Cindy, thank you for being here. Lovely to have you. I'm really honored to speak to you, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Shona. I hope I'm audible enough. If you can just give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much. Thank you, and Good evening to everyone. I've seen that there's even runners from Brazil, all over the world. So I'll try and keep it short. I know that we are tired. I know some people are going to still have morning runs. So also to just allow some of these questions, which are very important, that have been asked, so that we still have time to take them. So for mine really is nothing technical or any advice on nutrition, etc., but just a different element in terms of the realities of women that are running the Comrades Marathon. And I'm hoping that with just this few short presentation, that we'll be able to get something out of it, because I know, I always say this, that everybody sort of remembers, the male winner of any marathon, but you will find a lot of people scratching their heads to remember who won the female category. It certainly works like that, even with, world records. Everybody remembers the attempt for sub-2, but if you had to ask anybody really, what is the world record for females, a lot of people will still scratch their heads to remember that. But women do play an important role in sport in general. And I think it is important that we keep advocating for women in sport, for more women to take up sport, and certainly in this platform for more women to participate in Comrades Marathon. My journey really started in 2014, and I won't bore you with the story, but in South Africa, if you run a 10K and you call yourself an avid runner, people start asking you, when is your next marathon, and etc. And eventually the question becomes, have you run the Comrades Marathon? And it always seems that no is not such a popular response. And 2014, I lined up for my first Comrades. And like anybody will tell you, you just need to do one Comrades. And when you finish that, then, the story goes, no, you then need to get your back-to-back, and you finish that. Then you have the temptation to improve on your other time, whether you started with the up or down. And by the time you realize you're in a web of 5, and then people say, you're halfway, you might as well finish. So I will be lining up for my 8th Comrades, having framed my 5 medals separately, because I thought that's where I'm going to end. So I have stopped that, and I will be chasing my green number. But this journey really has been an interesting one. And I just want to see if I can get my slide moving. As mentioned, 7 Comrades. I'm a running blogger. I try and find time to do that. I'm also a host of Utingo Lenkosazana, which is an event really that seeks to celebrate women who line up for Comrades Marathon. But in the event as well, we've invited females who would like really to just get a sense of what this madness is all about. The last edition of this was in 2019, and there has been a loud request to bring this event back, and we are considering that. I'm also the race director for my club, which is the Fat Cats, the 10-kilometer race. And I've done Washi 100 miler and participated in the Abbott World Marathons, 4 of them, and many other international marathons. As you would see on my certificate, there, my personal best was last year, 2023, a Bear Roman, 8:56. And I guess the crux of this presentation really centers around this, because you will see that back in 2014, I started at 10:35, and how do I now end up at 8:56. Next slide, please. Really, running as a female, and I'm going to focus mostly on females, because I strongly believe that we have different challenges to males. We have different responsibilities, and we go through different dynamics in life as to opposed to our male counterparts. Back in 2014 to 2018, I had a perfect running life. I really enjoyed, going to races in different cities. In fact, at some point, myself and a friend of mine, we had said that we're not going to be repeating marathons, but instead we are going to look for the craziest marathons around the country, and we are going to go and do that. And therefore, we did exactly that. Also ventured into international marathons. And until, between 2014 and 2018, as mentioned, I really enjoyed running. In 2017, I then set a PB on the up run, which was 9:43, and I look at that race as honestly a jog, because I really went into it armed with information, as we have these webinars, confident about my run. But the most important thing for me was that I was in tune with what I wanted to do, the reason why I wanted to run Comrades, and it became such a perfect a race. I've got a PB of 5:16 at the Two Oceans Marathon, and I've got a PB of 3:34. As mentioned, there are other events, there are other marathons that I've done. But all in all, between 2014 and 2018, I would have never thought that anything would take me away from the love of running. I'm also very much active on social media. I enjoy healthy banter, and just to keep the sport light, because I think, as we go into training, there's so much information that gets fed to us, and there's so much pressure in terms of performance that we get us so absorbed in the sport that we started as a sport to just connect with ourselves as a social element. But in between that, sometimes we do get lost in all that is happening. So I always try and write about the sport, about running in a light manner. But life does happen. So from 2017, I got an opportunity to serve in the sport of boxing. And I'm not going to go really into too much details about that. And this was a great opportunity because then I was the first female to occupy that position. And it's also a male-dominated sport, and really a Black female in a male-dominated sport that is considered very, very hardcore. You can imagine the challenge that I had to just convince anybody that would care to listen that I even know anything about boxing, which I didn't. I'm an administrator at heart, and a sports administrator at that. So given this opportunity, I found it very, very difficult to balance between running well and doing very well in running, and also balancing the professional side of it. And this is no different. And I always say that my story is not really different. I think we have all different challenges. You do have runners that become wives, that become mothers, and they have to then balance all of that, the work, the running, and being a mother, and all the other responsibilities that we do have. And unfortunately, during all of this, one had to really suffer, because we do pay for all these adventures of ours. We have to have work to sustain that. And therefore, for me, I found that I also still had passion. I actually had passion for the sport of boxing, and being a sports lover as well. It then became sort of like a tuggle to balance the two. And I must say that to a certain point, then the running, struggled quite a lot. If we can go to the next slide. This is me fast forward in 2022. What is very obvious is the amount of weight that I had gained. But just before this, and to maybe position how I got to the fit runner who could run 9:43 and was running all over, to lining up almost 80 kgs at the 2022 Comrades. I found myself, balancing the realities of a corporate woman in a male-dominated industry. But I was also faced with some of the changes that happens in sport. There was a time, and I think to a certain degree, it's a continuation of that, where I think we lost as runners the true meaning of participating in sport and what it says for each one of us. Every one of us has a story as to why they run. And I did write a blog at some point and said, running is a personal journey, and therefore not everybody is chasing time. Not everybody is chasing to have a barrow. And there are people who just want to finish and tell their story. There are people who got into running, to lose weight. There are people who are dealing with different things, and along the way, people do find healing in the sport. And there was a point that I also forgot as to why I came into running. And there was a time as well that my self-esteem hit rock bottom, because I moved from this avid runner who ran with a crop top, ran international marathons. I would wake up on any Sunday to go and run a marathon, and without really any effort, I knew that I could run a sub-4. And I found myself struggling to even run a sub-4. And it's interesting when I look back now on how we deal with things, because I then started getting into driving buses, your 430, a sub 450 bus. And people would look from the outside and say, I'm giving back to the running community. But in reality, that was me trying not to deal with the reality of that I cannot run a sub-4 anymore. I went into depression. I actually hated running. I was also grieving because in 2021, after 5 years of serving at boxing, I resigned. And now I do not have the thing that I really, really loved, that I had given 5 years of my life to. And I'm sitting at home and I'm trying to run, and I do not have the speed that I had before. Now it seems that there is no joy in both worlds. So I went into depression, and I struggled very much with the weight. I struggled with just identifying who I am, but I also struggled with the noise that came from the running community, because as you go to races, as you finish, way after the people that you used to be faster, you get all of this noise that come, the questions. Some of these questions really came from a good place. Why are you not running in the sub-4? Why are you not doing this and that and that? But I had my own struggle. So Comrades 2022, I had scrambled my way in back into running, and I did write a thread on this, which is on the highlights on my Instagram page. Just the journey that led to this Comrades 2022. I must say that the one thing that I looked forward to was seeing my brother, who had for the first time came to support me, understanding exactly where I was and how important it was for him to just be on the route. And they had a surprise for me, because my dad came all the way from Zim, and I only saw him like at 37 kilometers, because I didn't know that he was there. So as I lined up, I had so many questions. I was unfit. I didn't know how my body was going to react. I had tried to do as much training as possible, but because of the weight as well, I had a little bit of niggles, because I think I did what we call as social runners microwave fitness. So that really caught up with me. But fast forward, I finished the Comrades Marathon 2022 at a time of 9:55, which was a great surprise for me. But I had also gotten some support from friends in the club. And I also took a personal initiative to seek help so that I could heal and then be a better person. And I talk about healing because I think it's important that we understand that some of the issues that we have and some of the troubles that we have a way of impacting on the things that are actually meant to give us joy. So for me, I was dealing with the loss, the grief of my career. But what that had done is it had stolen the joy of my running, because I just felt that as a sports person through and through, as an administrator and as a runner myself, I could not separate the two. And unfortunately, all this got muddied in the process. But I took the initiative to seek assistance, and I was in therapy. And slowly but surely, I got into track. Yes, there were other things that then became an issue, because today I'm actually a solo runner. I've trained for my 2023 Comrades all on my own, and that is because eventually coming out of that depression, I unfortunately inherited a fear of crowds. So, and it's very strange, because with my career, I mean, I always called events my office, because that's where we were, and full of people. And I used to really, really enjoy being in different running groups. But I then found myself unable to train in a group. So 2023, I then went on my own, and I still train. I am a solo runner, although this is something that I'm obviously dealing with. If we can move to the next slide. Then 2023 happened, and I think this is what I want to emphasize, really, that as we embark on the journey of Comrades, whether you are going to do just your once off, or you are going to do a back-to-back, or you're going to try and chase a green number, it's important to just highlight that the reality of women is such that your life is not necessarily going to be the same throughout. Some of us in this platform are young enough to still be have the ambition to have kids. We're still going to get married and stuff. And all those things do bring certain dynamics. And the reason that I founded Utingo Lunkosazana Gala Evening is because I realize how much women actually offer into the sport, which also takes away from their own ambitions. And I'm just going to be really quick. I think it's just the second last slide. It's amazing to see where I am right now. And on the next slide, I'll just summarize with that, is that where I am now is my PB is an 8:56, which was last year. But I since also had a PB in the 10 kilometer, in the 15 kilometer, in the 21 kilometer. And just this past weekend, I ran the bus marathon, and I ran a 3:37. And while this is not a PB, for me, it is a PB, because the last time I ran a time under 3:40 was 7 years ago. Next slide. And the reason why I wanted to highlight this is that I want us to remember that whatever happens in life, in this journey of us chasing our goals, whether it be getting to the green number or not, we must just remember that things will not be the same. We are going to go through changes, but it's important to know and identify those, but to also remember that at any time, you can always reinvent yourself. I'm a better runner than I was 7 years ago, when I really enjoyed running with the whole community. I enjoy running on my own right now, because it's a me time that gives me time to reflect and to think about the next step and what is it that I want to do. But I'm running much, much better than I did in my 30s. And tomorrow I will be turning 46. And my ambition for this Comrades Marathon is to run a Berrowan. Now, what is it that I have done to get to this point. I had to, and this will be on the next slide, I had to ask myself, what is it that I want to achieve? What is it that I want for myself? And I would implore that everybody that's embarking on this journey actually ask themselves, what is it that I want to achieve? You know, do I want to get to a Rowan? Do I want to get to a gold? But what is it that I want? But also, what is the reason that I'm running the Comrades Marathon? And I think with those two things, and it must be a unique reason. Yes, I think having watched our Comrades over the years, would also like to be part of this craze. But once you've experienced it for the first time, I think it starts changing and you start having different reasons of why you want to continue running Comrades. And I would say to any novice right now, get the what and the why you want to do it, and always probably just write it somewhere and keep it safe, because at difficult times you can always go and refer to that so that you can remind yourself on why you embarked on this journey that takes so much of our time. But if you have a genuine and a personal story of why you're embarking this, and it resonates with you more than it does to any family members or any friends, I think that creates longevity within running the Comrades Marathon. And just last, what are the resources that I'm going to need to achieve my goals, to continue enjoying? And for me, this was the changing point, in that I had the family that understood exactly where I was. But within the maze and the confusion, I really found myself surrounded by people who really wanted to see me succeed and get out of the gutter that I was in. And I'm very pleased today to say that, you know, I am surrounded really by people who have guided me, not to run fast, but to just try and find out what will happen if I just give this one more chance? What if I do things differently? What if I get into a program that's structured? What if resources, such as nutrition are available? What if I get a book to read? And I think once that has happened, my whole mindset in terms of the sport in itself and who I am and what are my reasons for running Comrades really did change. I'm more ambitious. I'm more in tune now with my running. And I think on Sunday was probably the best marathon that I've ever ran in all those years, including that PB years ago, because I think right now I understand exactly who I am and I'm doing this for me, but I also have accepted that, things change. But what is most important is that at any time when you are ready and when you want to reconnect with yourself, there's always time and room for reinvention. So in closing, if you ever find yourself in a gutter, and I always use the quote that says, all of us are in the gutters, but some of us are looking into the stars, is that throughout this, whether it's just a back-to-back, once off 5, or you want to take it all the way to green number and then proceed beyond that, is that when you find yourself lost within this wonderful journey that you are going to embark on, remember your why, but also remember that there is nobody that cannot reinvent themselves. And I certainly leave testament to that. And I cannot wait to see what 2024 brings for me, especially Comrades Marathon. But I also realize that if it doesn't happen, because on the day, the race brings itself, what's important is that I must be happy with what I've done for myself and remain in the sport. And I think with where I am mentally, more than physically, I'm more in tune to actually be in the sport and to run as many Comrades Marathon as possible. Thank you.
Cindy, that was amazing. That was so inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing, and if I can just say thank you for your honesty there as well. I struggle with depression as well, and I've had quite a journey with that. And so your talk has resonated with me a lot there. So thank you for that. And I think there's probably tons of women who I was watching the numbers because I was worried. Obviously, it's late. So I was worried that people are going to be dropping off, but more and more people were joining. So thank you for that, Cindy. Can I ask you a question before we get into some of the others?
Sure.
What for you was the biggest change? You started off as not a Bill Rowan runner. What for you is the biggest change to now? You've gone through struggles with depression and all sorts, but what do you think was the biggest change for you as a female runner from going from just a finisher to now becoming a essentially a Bill Rowan runner? What are those changes for you?
I think when we started running back in 2014, and not so much resources in terms of information was available. We just got into the sport, and you just had to buy a watch, and you were told to run a sub-4. This is how you do it. But I think what majorly changed, and I don't want to put this person in the sport, is having people that really want to see you succeed and really explaining this, because my training for for the Bureau, and in fact, I had spoken to a friend of mine and I said, I want to train for the Bureau in 2 years' time. And this was in December 2022. And he said to me, you are actually going to run the Bureau in 2023. And obviously I didn't believe him. But that guidance and allowing yourself to just to different kind of information, reading some more, and of course, these webinars have been really, really beneficial. In fact, even today, I've learned new things, and I'm going for my 8th Comrade. So it's understanding as well that you're never a complete person. There's always something new, but opening up yourself to see what is it that can be different. But definitely for me, surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed and are always there, even at the times where you are not performing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. I think you're so right. I think that community is so important. And I think as females in particular, so many females are career women and moms and family. And so having a community is so, so, so important. So yeah, thank you for that. I just looking at the chat, I see that someone, Lorraine is saying that it's your birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Cindy. So that's awesome. And I hope you have a lovely, lovely day. Thank you for joining us, Cindy. There probably is going to be another question for you as well. And I am cognizant of the time, guys. So I'm probably only going to ask 1 or 2 questions, and then we're going to call it. It has been an amazing, amazing, amazing time. We will definitely be doing another one of these, just so you know. If I'm not mistaken, Sophie, so I think it's the next women's webinar is on the 17th of April. And to add to that, just so you guys know, we have a women's boot camp happening on this Saturday in Durban on the 2nd of March. And then we're doing another one in Johannesburg on the 23rd of March as well. Okay, so Nikki, if I can, I'm going to get you back on stage and I'm going to ask you a question. Cindy, I'm going to pop you off stage. You're welcome to, obviously, please hang around. I have one more question for you as well before you go. Nikki, I'm going to bring you back on stage as well. And then, Nikki, I just want to ask you, there's a great question that came up. I think it was from Maud, just around, sorry, let me find it. It was around iron. Sorry, let me find it. There we go. Yeah. Nikki, please speak to us around iron deficiency for us ladies. How to ensure our levels are acceptable. Low iron can obviously also affect your energy, and no gel can help with that on race day. Is that, Nikki, is that just a thing? If you have your menstrual cycle, very often women think if you're bleeding, we must replenish with iron. Your thoughts on that, please?
Yes, thanks. I see there's quite a lot on iron deficiency. We must maybe, have a more in-depth or maybe later when we have time on a forum. But iron deficiency is quite a real scare. I think, first of all, because of menstruation, we do lose more iron. So naturally, if you look at our recommended intakes, some of the nutrients is a higher recommendation, and iron is one of them in females. And the other thing that put you at risk is because you're an endurance runner. Okay, so we do lose a little bit more iron because of foot strike on hearts, surfaces, or if you're somebody that really use a lot of anti-inflammatories. And even if we train hard, guys, there's also again an inflammatory marker, hepcidin, that makes you not absorb iron that well. So iron is a tricky one. It's really a tricky one, and when you take your supplements and so forth is important. So I think it is important to attend to iron sources in your diet to make sure that you know what contains iron, and it must be a mindful inclusion of things that contain iron. Like, it's not only spinach and beetroot. I mean, there's a lot other things. But then the other thing is, iron is not a nutrient that absorbs easily in the body. It's quite a tricky one to manage, and there's quite a few things we do that hinders the absorption of iron or that can advance the absorption of iron. So if we take iron, for instance, in a meal, and you take coffee or tea with that meal, that will decrease the absorption of iron from that meal. And I think as runners, we love our cup of coffee after the run with maybe our cereal. So the cereal is fortified with iron, which is good, but the coffee will decrease the absorption. Especially tea is actually worse than coffee if you take tea with your meals. If you take vitamin C with your iron, that usually enhances the absorption. So swap the tea for something like orange juice. You will also get the extra carbohydrate from it. If you take iron with a meal that contains milk, that will decrease the absorption. If you take iron with a meal that contains protein, that will increase the absorption. So if we eat, for instance, a spinach, but there's also a piece of chicken with that meal, that will enhance the absorption. If you take iron with excessive amounts of fiber, so even if you put extra raisins to all bran flakes, but you also put extra fiber in there, that will decrease the iron absorption. So it's a little sensitive little oak in terms of intake, and I think the idea is also to realize that it takes quite a while for iron to be incorporated in the hemoglobin, and the red blood cell has got a life of about 21 days. So it's important that we don't only acutely supplement iron just around. I see a lot of people that just supplement iron around the menstruation period, but I think it's important to do it, over a long period of time. So always take it, and then always we try not to sub iron unless we know what our levels are. I think that's also important. So most of our multivitamins will contain iron, which is enough iron for the RDA for what we generally need. But if you're somebody that needs more, you need to maybe, if they take blood for something, ask them to please just also check iron. And also, if you stay extremely tired, so what symptoms is dizziness, tiredness, inability to recover proper, and sometimes shortness of breath. So look at those symptoms. And I know you're busy with volumes and loads of training, so you pretty much always feel like that. But don't only just supplement iron, make sure that you know the levels. And if you're in trouble, it's going to take a little bit more than spinach to get you out of there. So test it to make sure what's going on. A lot to say about iron.
Yeah, it's not a simple topic at all. And Lindsay and I both have our own experiences with iron that have been very different, but actually quite similar as well. So Nikki, great, thank you for that answer. Nikki, while I've got you on, because I'm cognizant of time, I'm going to ask you another question just while I have you here. And someone also asked it earlier. I think it was Adatu, who's from Brazil, around hydration. And then Caitlin also asked a similar one as well around hydration. She said, I ran Capital City Marathon on Sunday and my sweat loss was 4.8 liters. With the humidity, I felt thirsty all the time. How do you adjust with hydration without overhydrating? Because obviously, I'm not sure if everyone knows, but overhydrating is obviously a concern. So what is your advice generally with hydration?
Okay, so I think the first thing is start your race well hydrated. So it's very often that we wake up in the morning, we drink a cup of coffee and we go, and you are usually dehydrated when you wake up in the morning. So the recommendation is usually to about half a liter of fluid before you go out. Some of us are scared of that because we're scared that we have a full bladder. But remember also, if there's fluid in the stomach, the uptake thereof throughout the race will be better. It is a very individual thing, hydration, but what we usually advise is that you determine your sweat loss. So Caitlin, with your 4.8 liters of fluid loss, that will give you an indication of what your sweat rate is in that humidity. It's a difficult thing to determine because every time we run, there's different circumstances. But you will find out by weighing yourself before and after trainings or before and after your long runs, you will find out what your approximate sweat rate is. So, am I somebody that sweats like you can see Caitlin sweat at about 1 liter an hour? And there's some people that sweat at 300 mils an hour, and it doesn't, it's not an indication of fitness or anything. It's just, so individual. So we are pretty much on the mission of saying that we drink according to thirst. But as Caitlin now indicated, that I'm always thirsty. So sometimes it does help if you're going to drink just huge volumes of water. If you're that a heavy sweater, the body has got what they call a diuresis, so it just basically flushes through the kidney. So what is important is if you have to take that amount of fluid, it sometimes does help to take electrolytes with it. And electrolytes, I mean salts, and to take salt with it or take electrolyte tablet with it, because the electrolyte tablet will make you retain the fluid better. And if you retain the fluid better, that will stop the thirst sensation because then the cell is fully hydrated. So I think that is important. Figure out your sweat rate if you can, approximate, because it does differ from day to day. If you're a heavy sweater that needs to drink more than about 1 liter of fluid an hour because you sweat that much, I would definitely get to a salt intake with it. It doesn't have to be rehydrated or salt replacements or electrolyte replacements as such. You can just take salty snacks as well, like pretzels or the potatoes next to the road. And then drinking according to thirst. If you drink too much, that you're going to have the intention or the symptoms of or getting into a hyperhydration or the overhydration, you would often feel puffy. So you will find if you're wearing a ring or if you're wearing a watch or something like that, you will feel that, okay, it's puffy. But unfortunately, that can also happen when we're dehydrated. On race day, I would rather advise you guys to drink small amounts from the beginning with regular intervals, because once you're dehydrated, you're in trouble again because then you can't get food down, you can't get anything down. So small amount, regular interval. Remember, Comrades Marathon has got a load of tables, a lot of them. So would it be necessary to drink at every table? For most of us, not. But for some of us, maybe you're going to need it. But start early, and then you can drink small amounts. The overhydration, I think, is a thing for especially us that runs at the back. That's me, and runs very slow and enjoy the water tables and everything that's on offer. But the best would be just determine your own sweat rate, and you need to experiment with stuff beforehand. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you, Nikki. Yeah, excellent. Nikki, I'm going to jump you off stage for just a second. I'm going to ask, I'm going to answer a strength question. There was a question that came through a little bit earlier. I just need to find it over here. This is great. Lorraine asked, should strength training be done on a different or separate day from your running day, or can it be done after the training runs? And so, Lorraine, great question, because in your Comrades plans that Lindsay has written up, that you're probably running 4 days a week, and I'm saying do 2 strength days, and then obviously you have 1 rest day. So ideally, yes, you want to do your strength on a non-running day, but I really, really want you to have a rest day or a recovery day as well. And so ideally, yes, non-running day, but if you then have to do it on a running day, try to make sure that it's not on a day where you're doing your hills or your intervals. So try and keep that separate. But if you do it on a running day, then there's obviously sort of situations with that as well. Ideally, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. If you can't do that because life happens and we're moms and career women and all the rest, then if you have to do them together, really, really important is I'd want you to make sure that you're getting in some form of nutrition, and I'm sure Nikki will back me up here, in between the two, because then you're doing a run and a strength, so having something to fuel that, and definitely afterwards. And I'm not too concerned about which one comes first. I know I personally like to run first and then do my strength. But I know Lindsay and I, we always joke about this because Lindsay does not like doing strength training. So he likes to do his strength first, and he calls that eating his vegetables. And then he goes and does his run, and that's his desserts. But again, I think the fueling in and around that would be quite important. Okay. But generally, strength on non-running days. And if you have to do it on a running day, not a high intensity day, and then just make sure you're fueling properly for that, particularly as women. Okay, so that's a great question there. Thank you, Lorraine. And then Cindy, I want to bring you on for this question, if you don't mind. I'm just going to bring you back on stage. And then Maud was asking here, and she says, Cindy, please tell us the realities of the up run, especially for ladies. Please be honest. And I think I held back a little bit there about how brutal this run can be. But yeah, you obviously have far more experience than I do in this regard.
I actually enjoy the up run more than I enjoy the down run because I tend to, I'm a type of runner that I call myself an old engine. So it takes me time to warm up. But honestly, if you plan your race well, it shouldn't be any different to the down run. But what I would like to suggest is that you find there's I think a podcast or a webinar which Lindsay had, which just talks about the up run. And we did touch on it here, especially the first 36 to 38 kilometers. But ladies, I actually want to also just give you a little bit of confidence. I think we actually run much better than men because we get into the race already. There's not much that's expected of us, so we are never under pressure. So we tend to actually do well in the ultras because we tend to sort of hold back. And I think with the up run, that is going to be very, very important, especially in the first half of it. But I don't want you to go into the up run thinking, it is the up run and therefore it is difficult. Not at all. If you follow the guidance of the podcast that have been made in these webinars, it's packed with information that you will need. Anything outside of that really will be an overload. But all I would say is just go to the race armed. Everything else, nutrition, your gear, etc., taken care of. And it should not be any different other than that. And I can tell you now that if you start that race with a little bit of fear and respect for the Comrades Marathon, you will definitely have a good race. And for me, physically, the up run is kinder than the down run. The down run, you limp until Thursday, so you've got more bragging days, whereas the up run, by Tuesday, you're already thinking about, next year. So please don't look at it this way. Just go and enjoy it and start conservatively, and you will enjoy the race.
Excellent. I love that. And yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you're saying. And I mean, I worked well with Caroline Wassman when she won, and her favorite was the up run as well. So yeah, you clearly much like that. But cool, ladies. I think we're going to call it here. It is a late night, and as the sports scientist, I want to say that it's time for bed so that we get our recovery in. But before we call it, I just want to, Cindy, from your side, a parting shot from you, a last piece of advice, and then I'll get Nikki on for hers, and we'll call it from there.
All I want to say is enjoy the journey, especially for the novices. Once you've completed the first one, we really don't care about you anymore. We look for the next novices. So do enjoy this journey. You will be pampered because all of us, wish we were novices, because at that point in time, we didn't know all these technical things and we just went into the race. But also be kind to yourself. As much as, yes, we are chasing time, time is not everything. The medal is actually the thing that you want to take home. So make sure that you secure that medal, and with time, you'll get into the tune of things and it will be different. But for now, please just go out there, enjoy, continue with these sessions, and I wish you all the best. And thank you so much for the opportunity as well.
Shana, you muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Nikki. I was just saying, Cindy, thank you so much. Cindy, inspirational journey. Nikki, parting shots from you. I always learn so much from you whenever.
Yeah, again, thank you for everybody's time. It's such a privilege. I want to conclude, also confirm with Cindy. You guys need to enjoy it and understand it's an individual journey, and don't let stuff stress you out. I mean, there's certain things that we need to do in nutrition, but everybody's different, and running fraternity can teach you a lot, but they can also confuse quite a few messages. So please find the correct information from the right people, start working on it, so that at the end of the day that you have your exact plan and you know what works for you without getting too stressed about it. Remember, food is still an enjoyable event, so please take the fun out of it. Enjoy your run.
Excellent, Nikki. Thank you so much, as always. Like I say, I always learn so much from you, and I've worked with you for many, many years. So, thank you very, very much. And thank you to Pat, who we didn't really get to hear from. I know her internet wasn't great. But to all of you who have joined us, I've been watching the numbers go through, and the numbers have not died off. So I hope you guys got a ton of value from today. From my side, my parting shot would be, with regards to strength training and training to your physiology, find the things that work for you. Again, much like what Cindy and Nikki are saying, try not to overcomplicate things. Find the little things. So from strength, pick one aspect and just work on those over time. It's the small little bits over time that are really going to get you through this race and finishing on race day. But I know comrades are doing a lot to support women in this race, and kudos to them for that. And so thank you to comrades, and on behalf of Lindsay and Coach Perry, thank you guys for joining. Just a reminder, we will have another one of these women's webinars. You need to register for that. It's on the 17th of April. We've got our women's boot camp on Saturday in Durban on the 2nd of April, and we've got another women's boot camp on the 23rd. And over and above that, there are obviously a lot of other webinars that are happening. But guys, I hope you got a ton of value. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll speak to you all very, very soon. Goodbye, team.